What's up, Clean Freaks? My name is Hank Balch. You're watching the 2024-25 Sterile Packaging Expert Series with Malinda Elammari, our packaging princess. Malinda, welcome back to the show today.
Thanks for having me.
So if you're new to this expert series, Malinda is the clinical education specialist at Healthmark Industries, a Getinge Company. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about packages within packages. So this is one of those nuances in sterile processing that could be overlooked, Malinda, but it's a pretty important piece of the packaging puzzle. So let's just maybe start off. Can you put a package inside of another package, and walk us through how we need to think about that question?
Well, Hank, thanks for asking. Um, so, so yes and no, right? So there's a yes and a no to this one. All right. So when we are talking about a sterile barrier system, putting a sterile barrier system inside of, let's go down to like a peel pouch, using that inside of a rigid tray or a wrap tray to organize your forceps and that kind of stuff, that's a no-no, right? That's an outside containment device, and should not be put inside. Just like you wouldn't use a piece of wrap to this is the one I see a lot, a piece of wrap to protect like a glass cup or something like that. They'll wrap it in
Okay,
that
so
and
that's
put
a
it
no-no.
inside. That is a no,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Or wrapping a rigid container. So
Yeah.
why?
I'll see
I
that.
don't know why people do that. You've seen it too. So
Oh, yeah.
it's crazy. I'm like, wait, I don't know. They're like, because we wrap everything here, and I'm like, not a rigid container. So when we're talking on those concepts, it's a no, right?
Yeah.
You can't do that. The only exception to that rule would be peel pouches, right? Double peel pouching something is the only exception. If you think about it, they're both outside containment devices, but they are validated to be put inside each other. So that being said, yes, when you're double pouching, right, you can put a pouch inside of another pouch. But there are different rules and things you have to follow when you're doing that process. You can't just go all willy nilly and do whatever you want and go rogue and be like, hey, we're going to put 3 peel pouches, like your picture you sent me, right?
Right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to use 3 peel pouches and break all the rules when we're
If
doing
two
it.
is good, three
Yeah,
is better, right?
exactly. The more, the better. So,
um,
yeah.
Let me ask you on this piece, because you use a phrase, I think you call it like outside containment device. And I guess that is in contrast to the other packages that we can put inside of rigid containers or wrap trays that are like those envelopes. They're called like popcorn bags sometimes, like the little white bags. But the reason those work and other packages don't work is because they're not um, they're not manufactured or validated as an outside containment device. They're validated actually as that internal organizational
Yep.
packaging. I don't know. Like, how would you categorize that?
They're really categorized as protective packaging.
Okay.
So just like your tip protectors and all of that, that's considered protective packaging, as far as like ISO standard wise goes. So and it's also considered an inside containment device because you're containing something. Even your screw caddies and stuff like that, those are all inside containment devices because they go inside of your tray. They're not meant to act as a sterile barrier system for your items you're processing. So, meaning if I put it in let's say I have a little screw caddy and I put it in a popcorn bag and I sterilize it in a popcorn bag, I can't consider that to be storage, and you know what I mean, like to be a
Right.
sterile concept. So that's really the big difference between them.
Let me ask you a quick follow up, just because we're talking about inside stuff, and if this is out of scope, you can just tell me. But there's constant questions around tape, that external indicator tape that's then being used on the inside of packaging. Like, sometimes to hold like hold indicators in place or to close those popcorn bags we're just talking about. How should folks think about using external tape inside a package? Is that okay or not?
You just said it. It's external, right?
Okay. Okay.
It's it's made for the
Dang it, I gave
outside.
the answer
I know
away.
you did. See, don't play charades with you. No, just
Yeah,
kidding.
right.
Oh, it's made for the outside of your
Yep.
tray. The concept behind the tape is an external indication to show you that this tray went through a process versus this one that did not. It doesn't indicate any sterility. It just tells you here's the difference, right? So don't touch this one, touch that one kind of thing, So I think a lot of people tend to do that. We see a lot of people use tape when they're wrapping, right? Because it's hard to hold all those folds, and you got to use all your body, and so people like to use a piece of tape on there, but you can't. You can't do that. And then they're like, "Oh, we'll take it off." Well, you start damaging the integrity of the wrap, and there's so many factors that go along with it. So no tape, no taping down indicators, none of that stuff. That's not allowed. So, but I did want to go back to double packaging. So, because we did talk about there's a lot of rules and things that have to be followed. One of the biggest things that I'm seeing out in the industry is utilizing two different manufacturers to package an item, which is not allowed. It is not a validated concept. And I think we touched on this on one of the other series that we did, but it is not a validated concept. You cannot use another like vendor, like you can't use Cardinal and Medline together, or Sterry King and Medline, whatever it may be. They are only validated with their own company, right? Like, so if they say we're validated for double pouching, and that's another key factor, make sure your pouch is validated for double pouching. They've done the testing and stuff like that. So if it's not, you cannot do that process with those peel pouches. So, but if it is, they've done the testing with their own pouches. They're not going to go to another company and say, "Oh yeah, let me borrow your pouch and do validation." They don't want you buying someone else's pouches. They want you buying more of their own, right? And I always use the reference. It's like going to McDonald's and expecting Burger King onion rings with your Happy Meal, right? Like, that would be amazing, and if we throw in a Chick-fil-A shake, that's like, ooh, perfect world right there, right? But it's just not going to happen. That's not how they do things. So, we got to make sure that we're following rules. Your pouches, the inner one is sealed. You're not using it as a tip protector. They're not a tip protector.
Great point. Yeah.
And then, you have enough space. They're not folded. You're not folding your pouches and stuff like that. You have enough space for the inner pouch to lay paper to paper, plastic to plastic concept. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the only exception to your analogy is I know some of the Yum brands out there, you'll run into like a Taco Bell that has a KFC
Ooh, yeah.
in it too. And so you can get,
Yeah,
both.
you do. You'd be like
Best of both worlds.
a fried chicken leg in your taco.
In your taco.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
But
I don't know.
to your point, that's not how sterile processing works. And I think really important insights here, Malinda, on a complex challenge that, again, we're making these critical thinking decisions every single day in sterile processing. And we want to make sure that our technicians are making the right decision with the right information. So if you have any other questions on these topics or other topics that we've already covered in this series for Malinda, we're going to have her email in the show notes. Please reach out to her and hang with us. We're not done with this series yet. We got a lot of good information on the agenda coming up. So until we see you again, like we remind you each and every week here at Beyond Clean, keep fighting dirty.